Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ali, you guys, your eccentric nomad. Thank you guys for joining today, my live discussion and Q&A. Um, I wanted to talk about this topic, which is top three things that I regret not knowing, not doing, not planning for when I started my digital nomad journey, you guys. And people have been asking. Literally just got a message yesterday, and it was, how do you live this life? And these are the things that, I kind of want to start off in nuggets because it's a lot of information and it's a lot to do if you're actually trying to plan it, which is not what I did. So I want to share with you guys my journey, some of my regrets, and some of the tips that I have for you guys if y'all are wanting to do this. Because I hear you guys, I hear y'all out here. Okay, so as folks are joining, let me know where you are joining from. Let me see if I can actually see chats. Chats. Okay, yeah. So let me know where you are tuning in from. Let me know if it looks okay, if it sounds okay, because I never know until after the fact whether or not it was a good sound quality and visual quality. Because on my screen, it looks fantastic. So let me know. I appreciate you guys' feedback. Appreciate you guys being here. So I want to jump right in. This is going to be, again, some of my tips, but I would love for this to be an opportunity to Q&A, for you guys to ask questions. If you've got things that you're thinking about, because on my social media, I don't know about you guys, but I do a lot of travel stuff and a lot of travel groups. And one of the things I feel like I'm hearing consistently is, I'm ready to go. How do I do it? How do I go? And, you know, everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different way. Everybody has like a, you know, surefire plan. And I don't have a surefire anything. I can just share with you the things that I did or didn't do and the impact that those things had. And I think that's kind of sometimes what we miss in some of the snippet videos that we watch. And why some things work for some people and some things don't work for other people, or it's almost like just like a diet. There is no one way. Like when you had that little diet pyramid, you used to tell us what to eat. Y'all, everybody don't need five servings of grains and all this other stuff. um Everybody don't need all that. Sometimes we just simply need to listen to ourselves and our body, and in this case, what we want and our overall bank account. What's up, Sonia? Thank you for joining. Hold on. This is my disco glow ball. Look at that. Get some light retention and retraction off of that. This is the party globe. This is my party globe, y'all. I love my party globe. Wish there was a way I could like hang it somewhere, but there is not. So maybe I can, I don't know, sit it right there so y'all can see it the whole time. I don't know. What's up? But ready, you're in Playa del Carmen. Mexico is representing in the house. What's up, Shana? Good morning. Or no, buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Y'all know I don't keep track. I don't know what time of the day it is. I think it took me 3 tries to figure out actually what time I would be going live. Today I still, because luckily my computer is still on Dallas Central Standard Time, but my phone is on Colombian time, which matches Eastern time. So I was thrown off. And then I was trying to read my time schedule from my YouTube analytic metrics. That's going to be a whole nother show, because I want to tell you guys the regrets I made in, building my YouTube channel and audience, and just different things that I've just made mistakes on. But we're going to get started today. Throw in your questions. I know some of y'all already out here doing it. But throw in your questions and situational things, please, as we go along. So, because I want this to be as interactive as possible. Because what I find too is that sometimes you guys can also private message me. I think ask me in a private message. Here, let me type in my email if you want. If you want to send me something privately, you know you don't want to ask in front of the entire group. I understand how that can be a little intimidating sometimes. And sometimes, people, you ask a question that people think that everybody should know, and you get crucified for it. There is no dumb question. And I wish I would have learned that a long time ago. That's tip number one. Just ask. The ask for help thing is really major. So, all right, so let's jump into it, you guys. Like I said, these are things that I, now look at as basic to dos, and I'm going to reference a place where you can actually find a lot of this, but I'll probably do a part two, so it's something that you can actually watch a video, and we'll walk through multiple steps at one time. But to start off, yeah, Sonya says some of these travel groups be roasting folks. Whew, it's tough. I mean, there have been a number of times I've left a number of different groups that I'm in before I get started. I've left a number of groups that I was in because of things like that. But sometimes I stay in them because they make for good conversational pieces. So people don't, so when you listen to this stuff, you realize that maybe you're not, like, not even maybe, you're not the issue, unless you're like going in these groups and you're like, I've seen some people be maliciously ask like things to trigger other people, like being in Asian groups and constantly coming into a group that is made for Black travelers. It doesn't say Americans, but when you use the term Black, you either think UK or America. And it's for people in Asia. And there's people who come in the group who purposely post in there why it's so much better not to date Black women, and why, all this stuff. And it's like trigger posts. So it's just like, why is that necessary? And sometimes I leave it because it's interesting just to know who's doing it. So in case you ever cross paths, to kind of keep it to a minimum, because that's what people think, or use it as an opportunity to share a different perspective as well, because it can be very discouraging. A lot of people just want to know that there's another option. There's other options. And I think that's the beauty of where we are right now. Like it feels so good to know that, if you're one of those people that are just like, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than what I've been told. If you've lived your life like I have with this, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do what everybody is telling me. I know that can be, you do it, you get by and you survive, but you get to a point where it's just like, okay, so what do I do once I'm done surviving? Once I'm done, I'm done getting by. And the beauty of knowing that there is another way. There's another way to live. That's it. That's where my passion and my purpose comes from, is knowing that if I just share a little bit, of what I've done, what I'm doing, what my plans are, then, it may help someone else get a disco globe. Oh, I say party globe, disco globe. That's what you call this, on your disco globe. See, I got short term memory too. All right. So number one thing that I would say, if you're going to start this journey, is decide, first of all, that this is what you want to do. So I'm talking about the nomading journey, the digital nomading, getting to the point of expatriating from somewhere. Decide that that's what you want to do, because one of the mistakes, and I'm just going to start off with one of my regrets. It's not a huge regret. It's not technically a huge mistake, but as we go down the list, it begins to compound. I don't know if y'all parents used to talk like this. My father was a pastor. I'm a PK, and he would talk about the snowball effect, right? And how one thing could be minimal, but it leads to the next thing, and you keep going, and snowball. I had the snowball effect, right? So deciding what it is that you want to do. So if you are blessed enough to be in this time, right, where everybody is talking about getting up and number one black sitting or just nomading. I'm in a lot of mixed nomad groups, and I find like I get a lot of information from those groups because different people travel different, which is why we need input from every different perspective. There is a place for black people. There is a place for black women. There is a place for solo women. There is a place for people over 50, people over 60, people over 70. I've seen some 80-year-olds out here getting it in, you guys. So there is a place for each one of us because each one of our perspective, in a space for solo men or men traveling or married people or people with children, because each one of us has a different perspective, a different situation. We walk a little bit differently. I walk completely different than somebody who has children. I walk completely different than a person who is not black, right? Not everything, but there are going to be some intricacies. Like people will be like, why are you worried about packing things for your hair? Because it's necessary. You know what I'm saying? And so we need all of our voices. So I want to make sure, number one, if you guys are getting into this game, understand that it is necessary for us all to share our different perspectives, because when I go and I'm searching for people to follow to get insight and inspiration from, one of the things that I notice is even though there are many of us as Black women travelers and solo travelers, there aren't very many clickables that I can go to. And I'm talking about like just handfuls of people, whereas I can get 100 different references, from different people. Maybe it's because we're not doing it, maybe because we're not showing it, whatever the case may be. But we have an opportunity to express things from a different perspective, which I think is necessary, especially in this day and time. So decide that this is what you want to do. If you don't decide this is what you want to do, and you do what I did, which let me tell you what it is that I did, is I basically got up in 2020 after COVID hit, and I quit my job. So if y'all don't know that story, I'll tell that story again one day. I quit my job in 2020 after 19 years with the company. Yeah, no, I ain't get no severance package. I ain't get no service package. I didn't get no kind of package. I got to buy, and that teaches you some things too. This loyalty that we have sometimes. These ones ain't loyal. I'm sorry. And so when I started, it was because, I needed to get out. And I'm going to do a video about getting to the point of burnout, right? We're going to talk about, some burnout ain't good. And I'll talk about it from the perspective of how it made it difficult for me to get to a good point, because I was so burnt out. And I'm talking years and years and years of burnout. So 19 years at this particular company, and I decided to leave. I haven't looked back yet, except, the missed paycheck. And maybe, the missed paycheck, right? And that's pretty much about it, but I've survived, right? But I hadn't decided that this is what I was going to do. I literally left July 29th, 2020 to go on a vacation, because initially I was going to go to Florida. I was going to visit 3 friends, pass through 3 different cities, because everything was kind of shut down. I wasn't working, but I was getting my yoga certification. So I was doing some things, but 6 months was coming and going, and I hadn't been back, on a plane. Oh, that's not true. I think I went to New Orleans and somewhere else that year. I quickly forget, but I hadn't been out of the country, and that's like a big drive, and a lot of it's experiencing different cultures and things like that. So anyway, long story short, I hadn't been anywhere. I ended up canceling my trip to Florida because they basically were shutting it all down. And I was like, I am not. One place I was staying for 1 week, and it was going to cost me $1,000 in this apartment. Well, I got a message that they were shutting everything down, the pool and everything. Then they shut the beaches down, and I was like, well, I can't go to Wet Willie's and I can't walk on the beach and there's no pool in the apartment. I'm spending $1,000 for 5 days, mind you, wasn't even a week. That's $200 a night. Yeah, no, let's cancel that. And I had American Airlines tickets and they were cheap when I bought them, but I was able to trade in, repurpose one of those tickets, and I ended up finding a trip to Tulum, Mexico. I had never been to Tulum, and that ticket I ended up getting $16 and like 23 cents back or something. That's how cheap it was to fly in 2020. So not only did I fly out of the country, I got some change back. You know what I'm saying? So I went to Mexico for just to get away. I was like, I need to go. I need I need to I need my airtime. I need my airtime. And I remember getting into going, you go through customs and all that. And this was, I'm telling you, this is how much I had not planned this, but I knew I wanted to do something there. I just hadn't really figured it out, right? Um, Let me backtrack a little bit. Let me backtrack because the reason why I was so off is because I think I was also narrowly focused. In March of the same year, I had planned to take time off to go teach conversational English in Spain. I had been accepted in this program, so I was going to teach English for a week, and that was going to be my starter to find out if I wanted to work for this company long term. And what I was going to do in addition to that was make my way down the east coast of Africa after, because Spain, babe, you just jump over the little water thing between Tunisia and Gibraltar. I think it's J, not G. And you in Africa, right? And so I was gonna make my way down, and then COVID hit and everything was canceled. So I literally, because I was more focused on that tour, and I was just gonna be hitting multiple places, like stay in places for 3 months and make my way around, go all the way down to South Africa, and then come back home. So I still was in that mindset. And so when all of that changed, I didn't recycle back around. This is what, like, just not thinking it through and not really deciding that this is what I wanted to do. I just knew I loved traveling, right? And so, like I said, when all that failed, I was sitting in the Mexico airport going through customs, and the lady asked me, "How long are you staying?" And at that time, I was like 7 or 10 days, because I had only bought a one-way ticket. And I always do that. Even when I know I have to come back home and I know I have to work, I've always bought one-way tickets because it's easier to move around when you don't already have something kind of already netted and scheduled out for me, right? So any other one-way ticketers, please click the button, tell me who you are, because I want to I want to meet you. So when she asked me that, I said 7 to 10 days. And then I was just like, well, how long can I stay? I'm telling you, this is how much I did. As a person who travels all the time, I don't go to Mexico very much either, right? And I never considered Mexico, but that's a video for another day, because that was a huge regret as well. And I'll fill you in when I do that video. But so I really wasn't thinking about it. I hadn't done any visa checks. I hadn't done, because it wasn't necessary. I was only going for 7 to 10 days. Why do I need to do a visa? I wasn't even thinking about it, y'all. I wasn't thinking about it. And she said, 180 days. My quick math in my head was like, that's double 3 months. It's like 3 months twice. And I said, oh, okay. Still didn't occur to me. I was like, okay. That's interesting. Self said what? So I went to Mexico, went to Tulum, and it was empty, y'all. It was empty. And I think this is the Tulum that most people think about or know about, those who have visited Tulum previously before it became the life of, the North American, the vacation place of the North American, right? And I simply enjoyed it. So my first 7 days went by, and then I booked a place on the beach. The next 7 days went by. And then people started asking, when are you coming home? And I think my brothers asked me, and then one of my friends asked, and I was like, well, I could do this. I just need to get into an apartment now because I'm realizing, $243 every 2 or 3 days. And that was a high point for me. Like, that's heavy spending, right? Breakfast included. I was like, okay, keep in mind, Ollie, you've quit your job, right? So, and you're not really doing any other income outside of my coaching thing, which I had kind of set to the side, right? Um, and so I was in between this living and deciding what I was going to do now. When am I going home? Right? I got a whole house there too. So keep in mind, I also have a mortgage and bills. All of these things, gosh, I mean, the plot thickens. It thickens through this, and this is why, I say, if you have some of these things, please learn from some of us who've already made some vast, large mistakes, right? So I ended up finding an apartment, and then one of my friends came and she stayed for like 2 weeks, I think. Um, Gosh, I think it was like 2 weeks, and it was around her birthday because she came in August because I got there July 29th. She came sometime in August. I ended up having 3 friends visit me from the States, literally back to back to back to back. So I ended up renting this one apartment that I like for a couple of weeks while she was there. And then I rented another place. And then I rented a place for a month because I was expecting like family members to come. Yeah, I was spending like $1,200 a month. And well, in this particular place. Mistakes. Okay. And what was happening is the cost was going up because so many people were starting to travel there, right? And it was summertime, right before Labor Day weekend, so prices start to just jump up because everybody, travels from Canadians to US folks down to Mexico, so the prices are high, but Tulum is just high in general, right? So I hadn't decided what I was doing. So I completely had no plan, no budget, nothing in mind, except I knew I didn't want to be spending $200 a night in a place, and I was basing it solely on like accommodations because my accommodations included data, electricity, water, all that kind of stuff that, I was already paying back in the States. So that's my first tip, is decide that this is what you want to do. So if you just aimlessly get up and go somewhere and you just don't come back, learn from my mistakes. That's all I'm going to say. Y'all, I ended up staying 4 months. I ended up visiting technically 10 different cities. I'm going to count 9 because I think one of them was short term or was pass through. So we'll say 8 or 9 cities that I literally stayed in, all the way from the east to the west coast. I was in Acapulco. That was the last place I stayed in before I came back to the States for 10 days to repack my bags and decide, oh, this is just like living at home. I can do this. I went back, repacked my bags. Nobody saw me except my brothers and one friend. And I hopped on a plane, used points, because my first flight was $45. Flying in between Mexico, I used points and just my credit card and stuff like that. But it was pretty inexpensive. And then and I'll share all that stuff too if you guys are interested. And I'll tell you some of the airlines that I love. Mexico got some good airlines. And then the points system that I ended up using and how that really benefits. So I flew to Africa for $0. And it was like an $800 trip because it was last minute. I booked it like 10 days before I flew. So yes, it definitely can be cheaper, and it was only one way. But I didn't pay for that with cash. I paid for it with money I'd already spent. So people ask, how do you do this? How do you live? How do you afford this life? Some of my things were became things that added up, and it was just like, okay, this is dumb. You're like spending over $2,000 a month. That's not smart, right? For me, because I don't have a pension, I don't have retirement, I don't have a job, so those are things that I had to think about, right? And I don't have any Social Security. I really wish that would just kick in when we decide we wanted to kick in. Let me just turn it on when I get ready to turn it on. Not that 60 something year mark. I got 20, 10, 15, 16 years. I don't even know how long before that. So I ended up doing 4 months in Mexico. Like I said, I came back and then I went ahead and I said, well, you know what? I had planned to go to Africa. The doors are open. They've opened up. I was going to Tanzania. Tanzania was like Mexico. They never shut down. Shut down, y'all. And so I flew to Tanzania and I stayed in Zanzibar for a month, which was expensive because I travel in December every year for my birthday. And so it's always a little bit more. So I paid more, but I'm going to end up doing the same thing while I'm here because I love the beach. I love water and I want to have a good experience, chill time, whatever for my birthday. And so I went to Zanzibar for an entire month. And then I went to the main coast of Tanzania. I stayed 8 months, well, 7 months on the coast, mainland, on the mainland. 7 months that I stayed. No plan, still didn't have a plan. I even signed a lease. Still know these people and have a good family. And from there, I went to Egypt for 3 weeks. And then I went to Kenya for a week to 2 weeks, and I didn't come back to Tanzania. And I had all my stuff in Tanzania. So I had to have all my things shipped. I have all this stuff in videos, you guys. I'll maybe tag some of these videos so you guys can see the stories of what happened. And so I went to Tanzania, and because now I realize I can do this. I can live this life. And I went to Egypt as a vacation from my life because I was living in Tanzania. And so as I'm kind of going through this process of last year, this is 2021, my number 2 thing is decide what your why is. So you first decide if you're wanting to do this thing called nomad or expatriate. Some people are nomads because they think their long-term plan is to expatriate. And some people it's to be a full-fledged immigrant, basically move permanently out of the US and stay in one place. Nomads or expats are people who potentially might be even moving around still. They found a home, but okay, I'm gonna do this for the residency term I have, and then I think I might move on somewhere else, right? And I'm a nomad. I haven't found either of those yet. So decide your why. Why are you doing this? So this is where the kicker comes in, y'all. This is when I started to sit down and think, what am I doing? We're a year in now. Okay, I left in July 29th of 2020. We are now in 2021. I'm in Tanzania for 7 months. I didn't leave there until July. Was it July? The end of July, middle of July, I went to Kenya. And in Kenya, I was like, this is the Africa I dream of. And each place I ended up visiting multiple cities, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cities, staying in different places and just moving around. Some places a week, some places 2 months, some places a month. Nairobi, I stayed in 10 or 13 apartments, and it was only there a month. I'll explain all that. If you guys ever want to know any of that stuff, please ask me, and I'll either do a separate video or, if you're interested in it because you want to visit there, we can do some one-on-ones and chat about it. But I understood, that it was reconfirming that this was a life that I wanted. But my why was so many things. And these are things that you guys might be thinking about, or things that are putting you in this place of, okay, I want to do this. I want to try it. Over the BS. Like, I quit my job because I was over the BS, but I knew I was leaving. Like, I had been planning on leaving my job since 2017, and probably mentally before that, because I've worked, if y'all don't know, since I was 12 years old. So at the ripe old age of 50, I've worked 38 years of my life. So technically I should be retired. Like retirement should be based on the number of years you work. And I'm telling you, I got a check. So by uh, government standards, I have been working for that long with a few gaps in between, right? Okay. Um, so being over the BS was, pretty major thing. In addition to, I had been planning it and kept putting it off. I was buying property in Belize in 2017 and just never did it, and had property in Illinois, and so I was already at a point of starting to get the wheels turning. I still didn't have a plan, but I was just like, okay, I know one thing I need to do. I need to clear the slate, right? Number two reason, for me, is always wanting to live somewhere else. And that might have been number one reason. It was the reason I moved to Texas, is because I knew that I wanted to move out of the country. And Texas from Illinois to me was like the halfway mark. Plus, my parents had moved to Texas. So I was like, oh, okay, I can be around, be closer to my parents as they're getting up in age and all of that, and be closer to where the first place I wanted to buy property, which is Belize. Well, it was Costa Rica, and then Costa Rica just skyrocketed. And so then it was, okay, let's find something else that's a little bit more reasonable cash wise. And so I started looking at Belize. I took a cruise there my first time. So I've been 3 times. And then my second time I went for a week, stayed on the 2 islands. And then I just went again this year. And so that was like, I want to be somewhere else. At least 6 months out of the year, I wanted to be somewhere else. And that was just every day. Like, I didn't think about traveling every day. Probably did. I'm lying. I probably literally did. But I did think about living somewhere else. I've always thought about living somewhere else. So it's always been in me to be this person. And I've always loved exploring and being adventurous and all that. And then another part that falls into that is loving new cultures. Like, for me, I think I spent so much of my life in boxes. What we should do from corporate America, from religious, presets. I had a child early. I was a single parent, right? So I've gone through all of the, typical things that people will, that stigmatize us. Yeah. I've gone through all of those. I've been those statistics, or at the beginning of those statistics, and I knew I didn't want to really be a statistic. So I wanted to get on with my life. And it's kind of hard when you don't really know other people who even understand what it is you want to do and why. And I knew I just really didn't care. But I'm going to tell you, it's okay not to care what other people think. But at some point, you do need the support system that pulls you to the next level. You can't always be pulling, right? You're pulling. So now you got all this slack on this side because you're constantly pulling somebody up. Because if you let go, then what happens to all of this? So now you need somebody on this end of the rope pulling you. Okay, you've done that. That's great. Now you need to move forward. You've got to move forward. And a lot of times I think we are told that it's being selfish to want to move forward. Everybody, it does not fit, like I said, into that little dietary triangle. Neither do we fit into everybody's box of what life is supposed to look like. So I was constantly asked, when am I getting married? At this point, why? I've already had a child. My son's 31. I had 2 grandbabies. Not to say marriage isn't necessary, but why is like that the forefront? Because that isn't necessarily my path, right? So I used to always wonder, why don't people suggest what they see me doing, and instead of trying to steer me another way? And I think that propelled me even more to want to do something else, because I felt like, well, then what are you trying to keep from me? And it wasn't people were trying to keep things per se. It was their own fear, their own fear of well, that's unknown. I don't know what she's doing. I don't, I don't know how to make sure that she stays okay, or, look after her, or, just all these other things that become trivial in other people's issues and not yours. And so I'm going to break and share something. I'm going to actually share my screen with you guys. This is why what is your why became so important to me. And it is one of the things that I always share with people, because your what is your why is always going to ground you when you start questioning what you're doing, when what you're doing starts to get hard, when you're sitting and going, I want to go home, but I don't want to go home, right? What is your why? Has to be because of you, has to be for you, has to be enough of a driver that you'll take the bad when it comes, because you know you're going to get back to the good, right? So let me share. Let me share my screen. I'm sharing it already, probably. Okay. Yep. Hold on. I went back too far, y'all. I went back too far. So let me make sure you guys can actually see. Please chime in when you guys can see it. Okay. All right. So y'all are already on my page. So we're going to do this. Let me just make sure you guys can see that. Okay. I think y'all can. So I have a travel course that I created when I was doing when I was doing my quarantine in Thailand. The 4 months I was in Thailand, that's a whole nother story. But I decided to use my quarantine time to go ahead and record my travel course. Didn't really know how to do it, best way to do it. It'll definitely need some additions and updates, but what's out there is great information. It's, just doesn't have bells and whistles, which we'll get some updates and upgrades, but the information is still the information. So anyway, you can get to that by going to bamj.teachable.com. And eventually this is all going to move to my mind, your body and soul page. But I want to just show you this, guys, because it's something that I always reference and go back to. But this is an easy way to kind of get some of the initial tips, like how do we get started? And you can do these things at your own pace and at your own leisure, or you can come on YouTube, because I'm going to be sharing this stuff on YouTube too. I just know a lot of times people want that what feels like individual teaching or coaching, and then you can also sign up for one-on-ones. So if you go to bamj.teachable.com, you'll get to my Bamtastic Journeys page. So it's my Bamtastic Journey School, and I just share a little bit about who I am, what I'm doing, and what you're going to find on this page. And then when you click on, there's one course. I have one course on here, you guys. And this is when I was in, y'all, this is literally a picture from my camera. This is one of my good friends, my camel friends. This is Nelson, I believe, because he's got the scar. It was Nelson and Dushi. So anyway, this is when I was on Kenya's coast in Diani. But the point of this is the course. And of course, there's 8 modules. The very first one is, what is your why? So this is going to kind of walk you through things that you need to know and be thinking about when you are deciding to embark on this amazing journey. What is your why? And then you start getting into the other things, because if you don't figure out what your why is, why you're actually doing something, you might likely not do it, or you'll end up back where you started. and be a little bit discouraged, right? So my why became, first of all, finding out what my passion, what my purpose was in life. Like, what do I do naturally that just brings me joy, whether I get paid for it or not? There's caveats to that, because you get so used to doing things that you love, you get to a point like me where you don't know how to ask for help or ask for money for the things that you enjoy doing. But when you're living this entrepreneur life, you have to. And that's why it's important to know when you're pulling the rope and you're guiding people, they're climbing up this hill with you and you're guiding people, but you don't have anybody else pulling you to the next thing. This is when you start to get a little bit bogged down. So these are the things that I regret. My journey is not already having a group of people that I felt like I was in the groups, but the groups were somewhat discouraging because so many people, had negative commentary and ideas and thoughts. And again, there weren't a whole lot of people who looked like me. And so it was just like, okay, get out here and do it on your own and figure this thing out. Well, you don't have to do it on your own, y'all. So figure out your why and stick to it, write it down. So that when you start to question, what was I, why am I on this boat? Oh, that's right. That's right. Because I know there's something better out there. I know I want to expand and see different cultures. For me, in the beginning, was bridging cultural gaps. I was a part of this Africa Talk TV in Dallas. And one of the big things was bridging the gaps between Africans from different countries, because there was 4 other ladies. I think there was like 6, but most shows there were 4 of us. So each time, each one was from a different place, whether it was Kenya, I think one was from Ghana, one was from Nigeria. And we talked about the things, the little taboo conversations. Why do Americans hate Africans and why do Africans hate Americans? What's so different in Africa about marriage and relationships that's different from you? Just things that we don't really think about, but things that can impact us. So in the beginning, it was really big about bridging cultural gaps, not just for other people, but for myself, like things that I've heard, especially things in media. If you are from the US, you already know most of the stuff that you hear ain't true. And if you don't know that, that's what my journey even still is about, is let me show you what daily life is like when I'm not with a tour guide, when I'm not on a tour bus, when I'm not, I don't have somebody scheduling something for me every day. Let me show you what it's really like here. And let you see that what especially US media depicts for most places, and some places, right? If they're in a full out war, please don't go. Okay. But that doesn't mean that you can't go to a place. And I'll explain that as well, being in Kenya, going all the way to the north tip of Kenya, which is on the border of Sudan, and they were at war, but you didn't see any of that. It was far enough away that, so just little things. And because what I think my biggest thing is I want to help relieve some of the fear and the stress and the tension of going places. And this last tip of today's top 3 is what's going to help you be able to do this, right? And that is start working on a budget. This is going to make or break you. So you got your why, you've decided that this is what you want to do and why you want to do it. Start making a budget. Even before you start planning out when you're going to do it, you need a budget. And I think this is a big part, that I try to assist people with. And I do have some little logs that you can use to start planning your trip, and it flows with the modules in the course. But how you start writing down your expenses, because a lot of people, I want to go to the Maldives. Okay. The Maldives on average is minimum $300 a night. I've never been. And most people go with a companion or with a friend, not of necessarily opposite sex or anything like that. But because apparently once you get there, it's harder to move around to different islands and it's super expensive. And so, most people say it's boring as hell. So you literally go for the pool and the, bungalow that's over the water, and that's where you literally spend most of your time, right? There is really not a whole lot of exploration into the towns and things like that because it really just doesn't exist. Like, that's what I've heard. I haven't been. And so understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, and really starting to look at this party globe and pick out, one of the things I say is pick out everywhere you want to go. You've had these lifelong dreams of these places, and list out the reason. All of that literally is in the journal, things that I have in the course. So you're literally going to go through these processes of digging into your brain and saying, okay, what is it that I want to do? Because if you want to be successful at anything, you kind of have to be a little bit more prepared. And sometimes what I have found in my life is because sometimes things come easy, I don't necessarily prepare like I should prepare. Ain't no sense in y'all having failures or spending extra money. And keep in mind, this whole time I'm doing this, I'm still paying a full mortgage. I'm paying all my bills because I didn't change bills. I didn't cancel cable. Well, I didn't have cable, but I didn't cancel internet and stuff like this. I wasn't renting my house out for a year and a half in the beginning. So there was a number of things. So stay tuned for part 2 of this, the next 3 things that you need to consider doing if you're going to do this thing full time like I'm doing. But budgeting is so important because, let me say this, if money is of no issue and you got it flowing and you're already doing all these things that allow you to be any and everywhere, you don't have to worry about your job finding out or insurance, you don't have to worry about any of those things, then go back to number 1 and number 2. And then from there, you start the planning part, which is, where do I want to go? And you're not as concerned about the dollars that you're spending, right? It's more about, what is it that you're trying to get out of this journey, of this experience? How long do you want to stay? And then you start digging into the other things that you'll find in the course, the visas. People ask all the time, how I want to go to, I'm going to just put this, I want to go to Africa. What do I need to know about the visas? Well, first of all, Africa is 54 countries. Each country literally is just like the US. They have their own rules. You can't ask something about the United States of America that applies to Belize, which is in Central America, still America, or Colombia, which is in South America. It's America. There's 3 Americas, but each one is a separate country within those continents, right? So understanding kind of those bits and pieces is critical, to, all right, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? Why am I doing this? How much is it going to cost me? Do I have the funds to do this? And literally it starts to break down those next steps. Okay, now I need to think about this. If I know I want to stay in a place, maybe there's volunteer opportunities and things like that, and you're kind of doing it solo on your own, not part of a group. So you're not getting a long-term, volunteer visa, you're on a tourist visa. You got to start thinking about those different types of things, right? And so this is the start to getting started. This is the start to getting started. And so when people ask, how do you do this? How someone literally said the other day, how do I do what you're doing? And where do I start with this? And you are the only one who knows what you're capable of. You're the only one who knows what your bank account looks like. You're the only one who knows your tenacity. Okay, so part 2 is going to be talking about some of those things. What are some of the things there? I mean, because the list of regrets, and not like negative regrets, but if I had been thinking, this is what I want, I would have started this entrepreneurial part well before. I went into this with the mindset that I still had a 6-figure paying job, right? I'm going to talk about even some of those things, like the savings and, whether or not you're continuing working, having cash flow options, different things that you can do that can cushion you while you're trying to figure out where you want to be. And that's where I am more so right now. Is I've made decisions in the 50 years that I've been alive, the 31 that I have, been quote unquote adulting as a parent. And I've made some decisions along the way that really benefit me in the last year and a half. And so I would like to be able to share those just as little nuggets, little tidbits. Every little bit adds up to something that can help you. And from a cost perspective, example, my expenses, and this is just extra information. So you guys have any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. But from a cost perspective, on average, even when I left, so imagine I left and I still had all of my bills at home and I was incurring monthly expenses. So I'm paying a mortgage and all my expenses, which was over $2,500 a month, whether I'm there or not. A little bit more when you're there because your utilities go up. But I know my utilities stay the same. How my utilities stay the same? I ain't there, y'all. Because your refrigerator, which is the most draining utility that you have, is still running. You live in a place where your heat needs to run. You live in a place where your AC doesn't have to run, but you kind of want it to kick on and off. You have all these things now. You can control them. I can control everything from my phone, and I'll share some of that stuff with you guys if you want to know that as well. But when you're paying those things, so let's say minimum $2,500 for expenses back in the States, and I'm not budgeting. So what I was doing is I was functioning as a relocating tourist. So I was caught between, okay, living here long term, staying here long term. I was trying to sign 3-month leases because you get better deals, all this stuff. And but there's things I want to see, things I want to. So now your budget is just, my budget was all over the place. My budget, I have a budget. Like I had an idea of what I wanted it to stay at. But then it was like, well, if I stay within that, then I also have to account for tours and stuff. And I have all of that stuff in those spreadsheets as well, right? So deciding what it is you want to do, deciding that you want to do this long term and not just 7 or 10 day vacations, because sometimes it's, well, I love what you guys are doing, but I just want to visit. That is fantastic. Utilize us for that as well. Nomading and relocating, expatriating, immigrating is not for everybody. Everybody doesn't want to leave their home country, and that's okay. Right? But you can learn a lot from those of us who are traipsing around already, right? So knowing that my long-term and my short-term were colliding. So who I was, my identity was colliding because I wanted to be long-term because it saved me money. But I also wanted to do the touristy things. And as I travel around more, I realized that most of the people that I would see on tours, especially more so now, were local people, which is really cool. It's like you run with a whole bunch of tourists. And isn't it funny we're tourists and we can't stand to see other tourists? And I'm just saying, like, I think it's more along the lines of people who don't respect the culture, don't want to adjust to the culture and things like that. And one of the things that I've learned is if I don't like the culture of a place, and I've been places like this, you can watch some of my videos from Egypt and Tanzania and Kenya from last year. One of the things that I learned is when you don't like something and you're living in this nomadic journey, you have not settled down. Like I know people who went to a place, only one place, and they've already had all their things shipped from the US. And they don't know if they're going to stay or not. But that was it. And that's what they needed to do when they got up and they did it. Everybody handles things a different way. And they're just like, well, let me know. I might check this place out. I might check that out, because there's so many different things that drive us to want to stay in a place. And I've shared those things with you guys. You could check out some of my recent videos about, what are some of the drivers, some of the things that I think in my last video about Cuenca and Manta, what are some of the things that I look for if I'm going to consider staying in a place 3 to 6 months, and it's the gamut of all the things that you need and look for when you're back home, right? All of us want a certain quality of life. And knowing what those things are before you get into something and being able to put a cost associated with like a range. This is my high and this is my low. What am I going to get for the low? And then what am I going to get for the high? Can I fit something in the middle? And then where does that put me? Am I living in a place and I'm depressed? I mean, I experienced that last year. I experienced that depression. And it's because I stayed too long. I stayed too long in a place and it was not fitting my energy and my spirit and who and what I needed. And I probably was dwelling on things too long. And so that bus ride, that 14-hour bus ride from Dar es Salaam to Mombasa, and the issues with at the border and all this other stuff was necessary, and the timing of it was right. And one of the messages I left on one of my shorts yesterday was, when an opportunity comes, you want to decide if you want to move forward with that opportunity, if that opportunity is benefiting you. And I shared this because one of the things I made a mistake in doing is taking opportunities that did not necessarily benefit me, but they look so good and they benefit somebody else. And so what you're doing is now you're filling a gap for someone else, but you're not being fulfilled. So again, that rope scenario is you're constantly pulling somebody because, wow, that's awesome, that's so cool, and you wow and awesome yourself right into somebody else's workload, right into someone else's dream. And then you wake up a month later, a year later, going 19 years later. What do I like? What do I want? You don't even know anymore because you've been doing something for so long because somebody told you this is what you're good at. Sometimes those things can benefit you because they open up other doors for other things, but make sure you're staying true to yourself. And these are just compounded things that are going to be parts 2 and, so on and so forth. If you guys find that, this information usable, but the basic tips, y'all, decide you want to do it first. Make sure you decide. Hey guys, if you guys are just joining, make sure you let me know where you are doing it in from. Thank you guys for coming on here. You got Q&A, you got any questions, I will answer any questions you have. But decide you want to do this. Decide you want this life, right? Figure out your why. Why are you doing it? Is it for you? Sometimes be like, I'm doing this for my mother, I'm doing this for my kids, but still make sure that circles back around to what you want. Otherwise, you're just reinventing, recycling the same trauma kind of way of living, just in another way. It's okay to think about other people, but somehow we have been programmed to believe that it's not okay to think about yourself. Well, how do you help somebody else if you ain't got no you to help anybody else? You know how long it took me to learn that and not feel like I was being selfish? Took a lot. Let me know, you guys, if this is still clear and sounds good. If you guys are catching me and it's not grainy and gritty. We've been on for 58 minutes, so I'm hoping that it's clear. Please advise me if it is not. And then number 3, start working on your budget. Hey, Colette. From Cali. Okay, wait, which Cali are you from? Because I'm in Cali right now too, but we're probably not in the same Cali. Which Cali are you in? And am I clear? Am I clear and not digitizing? Because I've done like 3 live videos from here, and every single one was horrible reception. Shana, you got a question? All right, Colette, let me finish. These are excellent tips and 100%. Thank you for chiming in and giving feedback. Let me know what you're doing. How does this fit in your realm of things that you're doing in your life right now? Clear, Cali, USA, Central Valley. All right, what's up from on the other side of the world? I'm in Cali, Colombia. So I always get a kick out of saying I'm in Cali. And I'm, just I'm in a different Cali right now. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Shauna, you said, so do you move on based on being bored where you are or because you find a cheap flight somewhere else? Ooh, that's a compounded question. I'm so glad you asked that question because, all right. So first of all, let me define what boredom means for me and how we have been bamboozled to think that boredom is a negative thing. So a lot of times we think we got to be moving around, we got to be doing something, we got to be working till we're 99. I am that person that says, the hell I do. No, I don't. I find joy in the sweetness of doing nothing. Dolce far niente, which is a real word in Italian. I find pleasure, joy, sanctity, self-care, calm in doing nothing. We call it boredom in the US. I call it living. It is my new definition for living, that I can actually be at peace and not constantly feel like I got to be doing something. I got to be up. I got to be moving around. I'm in my apartment a lot, but I have this huge balcony. I can walk around and still not have anything to do. Sometimes I don't go anywhere because I'm just like, because I'm not spending no money today. Y'all not going to have me spending money, But I've found there are places that I go. I can walk all the way to the plaza, which is downtown area that I think I showed. No, I wasn't live. But anyway, I think I posted it. And you can get free Wi-Fi while you're sitting down there. I can just sit and chill. I can just buy a beer, a 1,300 COP beer, which is less than $1. It's like 60 cents. It's actually less than that. It's like 42 cents, and sit and drink my beer in the park, public, all of this stuff, right? So I'm going to change it from bored to unfulfilling because they're different things for me. Unfulfilling meaning that my energy, it's decreasing my energy. It's putting me into more of a depressive state. I am constantly looking for the bright sky things. And I'll basically share my video about Cuenca and Manta in Ecuador. It was like the thing between the two cities, right? That's how I feel about Ecuador compared to Colombia. Beautiful country. Ecuador is amazing. It's amazing country. It really is. But it was not for me. So the question about, do I leave because I'm bored or unfulfilled or because I find a cheap flight? I'm slow traveling, long traveling, I'll call it slow traveling now. So what I do is I try to stay as long as my visa permits me to stay. So in Ecuador, we get 90 days. I stayed for 60. I should have only stayed for 30. Or no, I stayed for 60 and it was okay. I ended up visiting 7 cities while I was there, which was well worth it. We'll go back, and there's a couple other places I want to go that are more inland, but I was over the cold. So I left because I knew I wasn't going to go see those cities, and I wasn't going to spend another, rental. My rental was only $500 a month, included everything, right? Which is so cheap. And it was a pool house. It was attached to a big house, but love the person. If y'all need a place to stay in Ecuador, please let me know and I'll ping you. I'll send you the information for this fantastic lady. But when I start realizing I'm unfulfilled, then I started looking at them cheap flights, right? And one of my tools is Hopper and Skyscanner. I've started utilizing Hopper. Skyscanner is my first go-to because it's easy for me to search on there. It's easy to see the prices and stuff. And then I'll go to Hopper because Hopper offers Hopper deals on top of the deal that you're getting. Like Hopper will offer you free cancellation for an additional $7 or something like that, right? That has nothing to do with the airline, but you get that free cancellation, or you could reschedule your flights and all this stuff. There's a plethora of different ways to move around, and everybody has different ways to do it. I have a whole module about tools that you can use, and that needs to even be updated, because I don't know if I even have Hopper on there, but Skyscanner is a big one, and it's easy because you can get COVID information on there. You can check flying in everywhere from a certain place. So when I start looking for where am I going to go next, it's a combination of where am I, where do I know I want to go, and so for me, I was sitting here. I'll do this example because this is a perfect question. I'm here, right? So first I was in Texas. I went down to Belize, and then I went to Panama because I'd never been to Panama, right? I only stayed in Panama 3 days because I was really passing through, because I knew I was going to Ecuador. And so most of the flights stopped me in Panama anyway. So why not just do one ways, go to Panama, and then stay however long I want to stay, and then buy my flight to Ecuador, which is what I ended up doing. And I knew I was going to be in Ecuador longer because I knew someone who was there. She was only there one more week when I first arrived. Hold on a second, you guys. Let me find my little ticker thing turn my fan on, because I closed my door so y'all can't hear all the noise outside. It's so nice outside. I'm gonna open the door too. Let me know if it gets loud, if you guys hear the traffic, and I'll close it. Colette says, agreed. I love not having to do anything. Retired December 12th. Oh my God, F55. What? What is YO with? Is that without? No, without. YOWA pension. My brother just called. He asked me my plans for the day. I responded, taking another nap. I think he mad. Come through, Colette. Colette, you are part of my circle. You're on my team. I love it. Please, let's chat. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, that's so wonderful. So yes, Shanna, I with a pension. What is the why? Oh, I don't know these acronyms, y'all. I'm slow. But yeah, so Shanna, basically, as I'm moving down, and I'm gonna tell you this, I kind of already had a plan. When I had to go back to the States, so I went back to the States this year because I had to deal with some adult things. I had been gone 20 months before I went back to the States. And so, 55-year-old, thank you, with a pension. Appreciate you. So I had decided, once I come on this side of the world, to do as much as I can over here, because my goal was to get back here, looking at it backwards, to Thailand, because I loved it so much. I spent 4 months there, unplanned, and loved it. And the cost is just amazing. So I was like, I want to go back to Southeast Asia. But I know if I get over here, I ain't coming back. I had never been to South America, so that was another thing. Let me go to South America. People talk about Colombia all the time, but then people talk about Colombia all the time, kind of like they talk about Mexico City. We learned the truth about Mexico City. But in the meantime, I was like, always wanted to go to Ecuador because I thought I was going to go to the Galapagos Islands, which is very expensive. So if you're on a budget, you kind of want to plan for it. And then I wanted to go to Peru. But while I was in Panama, I met 2 people who had just gone to Peru, and they said it was super cold. And I was like, all right, I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass. Like, I would love to go to Machu Picchu, but that's literally all I wanted to do, right? Maybe check out a couple villages. And I was like, okay, it's not worth me doing all of that right now. It doesn't necessarily get too much warmer, but I just was over, the cold. Little did I know when I got to Ecuador, it was going to be cold. So part of the reason I've stayed here, number one, they also opened up their COVID restrictions in Colombia. And so I was like, well, I'm right next door. Let me see if I can just get to Colombia while I'm over here. Otherwise, I'll just have to wait until another year or whenever. But I've also been sitting here going, okay, Where else can I visit? Because I wanted to go to Chile years ago. Argentina is down here. I don't know that I have a huge desire to go to Argentina, but I've thought about it. And a lot of people talk about Brazil. I've never really had a huge desire until I read a post about somebody mentioned that about a place, a city that is not Rio, and they really like it because I'm part of safety is not putting yourself in certain conditions and things like that. And I just like, I'm like, I'm cool, but I'm so not in party mode anymore. So I don't necessarily care to, be in places that, oh, you had to go because you got to go to Carnival. I probably would never go. I'd have to be with certain people for me to want to go because I wouldn't even go out by myself. So if I go, you're paying all that extra money and then you don't go out because you're solo, then what was the point of going, right? So, and I think about money a lot because I have to. And so a big process is where am I? Proximity doesn't make sense because once I leave here to go here, whether that's back to Africa. So my goal was come down the Americas, which I have. I've hit North America, Central America, and South America in the span of 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, in the span of 4 months. And then I was going to tailgate my way back over to Europe because there's so many places in Europe I want to go to. And then make my way down into a few places in Africa as they open up. And then make my way over to Southeast Asia. But I'm also thinking, because I'm a slow traveler, should I just go to Southeast Asia, get my apartment for a year, which you guys, I can get an apartment for a year for almost what I was paying for 1 month in the United States. If you want to see examples of those apartments, check out my YouTube replays. There's some Thailand apartments in there. They're 1 bedroom, so it's not like a family thing or whatever, but you can find things for larger families as well. But when you rent for a year, it is so much cheaper, right? So I thought about going and locking down an apartment, even though you still have to update your visa, locking down an apartment here, having a base and only taking things that I need, and then popping back over here to Europe, moving around, go back down here to Bali because Bali is opening up a little bit more, kind of, sort of, whatever. And then making my way from here rather than lugging. All I have is a huge backpack, but I have a backpack and another 2 backpacks, one on wheels and one to carry. So instead of doing all of that, maybe I find my base and from there move around, right? So it becomes an expense thing. Jenna, I was wondering if you should get your apartment first. Yeah. So I'm pondering, but this is what happens as a nomad. As you're going through this, sometimes you run into unexpected things. And I almost didn't come to Colombia because of all the negative things I literally was hearing right before I came, like the guy who was murdered and they said he was drugged and all this stuff. But I was like, I don't function in those circles. So, like, is it just you walking down the street and somebody drug you, or you at these parties with people doing drugs and you doing stuff, So, after being here for a month, thank God I don't listen to other people's mishaps like that when they're personal choices, right? Nothing bad should happen to anybody, but we also have to take into account a lot of times our personal choices can put us in bad company. Okay, let's just keep it real. We're adults. You do whatever it is you want to do, but you have to accept some sort of responsibility when you are, especially if things aren't just happening. Like I can, if there were screens on my door, I would actually sleep with this open all night. But these mosquitoes be in and after me, y'all, and I am not gonna be fighting bugs all night because I need my sleep. No joke. So the surprise is that I like it here so much that I am adding Colombia. And there's different reasons why I like Colombia so much. Maybe I'll do a separate video on Colombia because I don't want to bastardize this video up too much. But I wasn't expecting to like it so much here. And wanting to add it to my possible long-term home place. The other thing about being here in Colombia, it is so cheap. I fly from city to city. If I only have a small bag, it's only going to cost me $30 to fly. It's kind of like being in Kenya. Flights for $30, $45, super cheap. And I could fly in Kenya for $30, $45 with my big bags. They didn't care. They put it on, I mean, they care. You can't have like 15 bags, but I don't even think anybody ever checked my tickets. Anyway, Colombia is now on my list, and I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have felt that it was worthy of potentially adding to the home base list had I not have come here myself. Okay, so um, hopefully did that answer your question, Shanna? Because I kind of went around. It's a culmination of things for me. And I'm going to say a big part of decision making for me is energy right out of the gate, energy and cost. So, like, I wanted to go to Galapagos Islands, and I could have done this cruise for like $1,200 for 3 or 4 days, but I was already paying for a hotel, and this particular one already included airfare. So they were actually because they wanted to sell these tickets, but it was kind of a bad time to go. It was at the end of whale season, which would have been awesome. But I decided not to because I was at the beginning of my journey, and I was just like, okay, you need to be figuring out what you're doing and how soon you're going to get to that place that gets you. That ain't it. Like, that don't look right. That's going to get you, that's going to net you that lower base, monthly base expense, so that you can then enjoy the rest of your life, enjoy the rest of the year, whatever it is. Like, I'm in an apartment. I decided to stay here for 3 weeks. I did the first week and weekend, and then I renewed. And I can share with you guys ways to do that too, so you're not rebooking a place and repaying cleaning fees and stuff like that if you're already in a place. I share some of that in my module too. But then I extended another week. Well, I extended for like 12 more days after that. So it's almost it's over 3 weeks that I will stay here. I'll stay here through the end of the month before I go to the next city. So then I'm going to go to Medellin, and I want to be on the coast for my birthday. So I'm going to stay in Medellin 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'm going to head to the coast. And it's all a cost thing, so I don't know if I'm going to do an island or if I'm going to do Cartagena, because I've heard mixed things about Cartagena, and so it's a mixed bag. Colette, I might have missed it. I heard you mention Tanzania. Yes. Have you visited or planned to check out Rwanda, East Africa? Okay, so I was supposed to go to Rwanda. I shouldn't say I was supposed to go to Rwanda. When I was in Tanzania, I had an opportunity to go and check it out, and I decided to go to Kenya instead. I do plan to check out Rwanda. Tell me why you suggested, or why you think I should go to Rwanda. I ended up meeting this lady who, she had a podcast or TV show or something like that. Really cool. It was actually a couple, or she was getting married or something like that. But I ended up meeting her while I was in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, and she talked about Rwanda a lot, and it made me actually start looking, because initially, no. And I'm going to tell you why. So another one of my requirements is that the country can't be landlocked. Like, so the city I moved to, I might do a landlocked city. Like, I'm in Cali right now, and Cali is landlocked here in Colombia. Sorry, y'all. Cali is landlocked, but Colombia is not. Colombia in itself has ocean and ocean view. And honestly, on Airbnb, if y'all go look up I think it's San Andres is the island a lot of people go to. Cartagena maybe a little bit more expensive. Santa Marta. These places are not expensive on Airbnb, like for a month to rent them, right? So, um, I think about that because if I'm going to live the life, I want to live like you, Colette. Yeah, I want to just, I want to wake up to the beauty of, you know, nothing. If I don't want anything, I want to wake up to I can walk. I've strategically placed myself where if I want to go and do anything that I want, I happen to be in an area that isn't heavy with vegan options, but I also have a full kitchen and all of that too. Plus, they stocked it very nice with trinkets that I'm not using, but as much. But I forced it where I could be living right next to everything that I want, but this forces me to walk miles, a couple of miles to three, even more miles per day to be in certain areas. And it is part of my motto is if I'm going to drink, have some cocktails or eat out or whatever, spend money, then I have to do something for myself, which means I have to walk. And I walk at night, not late. It's dark as HE double hockey sticks, but I walk all by myself at night. And I have videos and I show you that stuff too. Y'all, I'm in Colombia. The Colombia, don't go by yourself. Don't this, people drugging people. Don't have your phone out. Now, I do have a phone safety video, and I show y'all what I do with these little things that I have here, which I should add them because it's something I got off Amazon. I should add to my little Amazon store thingy. But if you're an everyday normal person and you're in everyday normal person places, you're going to be all right. And if you have questions about specific things, like I've stayed in 3 areas, this is my 3rd apartment, and I've stayed in 3, I'm lying, I've stayed in 2 areas, but I frequent multiple areas. So I go downtown, which they tell you not to. I've been over to the South Hood area at night trying to trying to catch a cab, which is probably the first place I've had such a hard time getting a cab. The historical district, I loved pieces. They got hills that will take you out, but I loved it every day because it forced me to walk hills. I've been here, the Granada area, El Peñon area, which are more suburban kind of areas, more gringo-y type areas. I hate using those words, but most people understand that. I feel like it's getting loud. Part ways with beautiful, great outdoors. And then Granada area, which is where I pretty much go every day. Like I'll go to the plaza, which is downtown. And then I walk all the way through like the Granada area all the way home, and I'll stop there, have a beer. I have a couple places that I frequent. People know me, can trade English practice with some Spanish practice and stuff. So just building relationships with regular people that I see every day. And then the area I'm in right now is Santa Monica. And so pretty much everything you need is right here. I walk to the grocery store. There's one around the corner. It's got everything. I need to actually go get a few things probably today. Colette, it is my understanding that Kigali, Rwanda, is a very safe and clean country. I have heard that as well. My original plan was to move there when I retired this past December. I have put it on pause for the moment. Oh, okay. Nice. So have you been to Rwanda? Thank you, Shanna. Perfect question. Have you been to Rwanda? Like, what's your experience? Well, you said it's my understanding. So my assumption is maybe you haven't been there. And is it still high on your list of places to go, or are you now thinking of some other options? I ended up catching. There was a lady who bought land, and I can't remember if this was it Rwanda. It had to be Rwanda. But anyway, she bought land and was farming, and I think she was building like a welcoming kind of center or something like that. But anyway, she had gone over and bought land and was talking about how surprisingly easy, nothing is super easy, but how surprisingly easy it was for her to do that. And basically her freedom. Like, okay, so yeah, she's working this land and she's got to build on it because it's just land. But people a lot of times don't understand that it's not so much, people don't necessarily want to work and they want, I don't want to work. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've worked since I was 12 years old. Like labor, how do you say that? Like labor, I don't know. I've worked since I was 12, labor jobs, um and I've been in corporate America behind the desk for 19 years, well 27 years actually. I worked in IT for 27 years. I've done all the side hustles. I can do hair. I'm a mixologist. I can fix your sink if you need to. I mean, just a plethora of different things that I know I can, if I put my mind to it, I can make some money doing. That'll be in part two. But um, what was I saying, y'all? I don't know where I was going with that. I got off track. So, but yeah, some of the I think some of the places that I've considered going to, um, I ended up catching some info from people who, oh, I was talking about freedom, who basically decided to quit their American dream and go somewhere else and start all over from scratch. And I would love to do something similar where it's building community land. I would love. There's a bunch of different ideas I've had since, I think, for the last 30 years. I've actually drawn some things that I still have, like that original drawing of what I would love to do from a community's perspective. And I think there is a group of people in Atlanta that are doing this. They actually bought some land and they're building tiny homes, or people are building these homes as they're paying into this community. And it's exactly what I would love to do abroad. Not some huge commercial type thing like one of the um, places in Zanzibar, Fumba Town. Not anything that extravagant. I would love to own land and people buy in, and be a part of that, of a smaller community, and there's some contributions and things like that. Colette, no, I have not been there. I have been researching them for years. My plan was to teach at African Leadership University for a bit. I have a girlfriend who currently lives there. Nice. Colette, does she have social media, or do you have social media, like YouTube or anything like that, that just shares any of that experience and stuff like that? That's really, really cool. I hope if that's what you want to do, that you get back to it and get to experience that. That is awesome. That is really awesome. I just saw you said one of my homesteads. Yeah, we've got to be like, circle clicks, because when you say one of your homesteads, you are you looking at multiple places being a base for you when you decide to start moving about? That's what it sounds like to me. And I do want to say this to you guys that are tuning in and are just like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't be bouncing around. I want to find a place. Don't look at the bounce around for some of us that is fulfilling, or multiple home base or whatever, as something, that shuns you and what you want to do, because I almost envy, really don't, but I kind of envy people who make a decision and are like, yeah, this is the only place I want to go. But I also look and say, how do you decide? There's 193. You decide. I've only been to 27, 28 countries. I know I can stay in places 6 months. I know I can stay in, well, I think the longest I've stayed in a place is 8 months. So Tanzania. So I know I can do that. Like, I know I can stay. 6 months is like an easy given. Now you can relax, you can unpack, you can, you literally buy kitchenware and, brooms. And I mean, like, you're literally living like you would every day. You know people know you. You walk certain routes or whatever. You have your drivers. Um, you know, you could do all of those things, or that's the benefit of finding a base. But for me, I'm just like, yeah, but which one's the best? Which one am I going to be happiest in? And so I literally am wanting a place in multiple places. So Belize is always going to be on that list. I think, unless something drastic happens, plus they have like a woman, or there's that Costa Rica. Costa Rica has the woman president. That's where I was going to move first. 2020, whoo, it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. But something in the Americas, something in Europe. So Portugal has always been a place that I've wanted to be in after my first trip to Portugal in 2018. Now, whenever I go to Europe, I pass through Portugal because I have a friend that I met there in 2018. And so I always call and say, hey, I'm coming through Portugal, are you around and can we meet up? And we meet up every year. I ended up doing a meetup and met her, and she's from the States. And we just keep in touch via WhatsApp. Colette says the plan is to complete my PhD. What? Will be done this. Congratulations in advance. Then hop around to different countries as a visiting professor. Okay, so I don't know, Colette, you might need to come on one of my shows, like my next one, when I talk about the money thing and continue working and how to position yourself, especially when you have a skill set or if you don't even know you have a skill set. Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. To enjoy different Black and Caribbean countries. That's awesome. Shana, how was your Wi-Fi in Belize? My Wi-Fi in Belize was fantastic. Of course, you got to get to a place that has good Wi-Fi, but like apartment or whatever it is, because sometimes they just have shady. I think because a lot of people talk about rolling blackouts there. I think there was one, and it was only a rolling blackout when somebody mentioned it, and I was like, oh, this is the first one. I think I was there 2 weeks when I went in July. I think I was there for 2 weeks or close to 2 weeks, something. I don't even remember. I stayed in two places when I was there this time. Oh no, three places, because I did two cities this time. So I did Placencia and San Pedro. So I was looking at the same land I had been looking at since 2015, and I went down to check to see what it was like and how they had built out things, because I hadn't been to Belize since 2015. But the Wi-Fi was fine. I did my videos. I had great access. I did Airbnb. So I think I had booking.com the first time. It was just a small one room. And I knew I wanted to stay longer, so I ended up getting an apartment. It was a huge apartment, more expensive, but and Belize isn't cheap. San Pedro is not cheap. Belize can be super cheap depending on where you stay. If you stay inland, Belize is about, you can find prices in Belize like very close to what you find in Thailand. More expensive, but close. But you're inland, right? So it just depends on where you want to live. And you're in a country that has a coast. So if you want to go to the coast, it's pretty easy. If you want to do island living, you just have to account for getting back to the mainland. But things are going to be more expensive on the islands because now everything is imported. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I think I have a couple videos on Belize as well. Shanna, is that one of your options of places to relocate to? Um, and then if so, which city are you looking at? I appreciate you guys being on and asking the questions. It's fantastic. You've been to Placencia. Did you like it? Did you like it? Because it was my first time to Placencia. Do you have to be fluent in Spanish for Belize? They speak English. English is the official language in Belize, Colette. So no, you do not. But it's easier to learn Spanish there, probably. A lot of people that you'll find, because it's a what I call a Caribbean country, even though people don't, I don't know if people consider Belize Caribbean, like a Caribbean country, because there's so many Creole Black people there. They speak Creole, so there's multiple languages in Belize, but the official is English. Um, Been to Placencia, but the Wi-Fi wasn't great. It was beautiful. Let me think. I was only in Placencia for 5 days, 4 or 5 days. I was right by the beach. Let me think. I don't think I had issues. I did go live once, and I think it was okay. Um, the food and hospitality was awesome, but they think all Americans are rich. And I think that everywhere. That's because we walk around like we rich. Like I am such a bum when I travel, and I don't mean like a bum, but I've learned some important lessons that you don't walk around flaunting. Like that's the respecting the culture thing too. Is you don't go to places where the average cost of the average income per month is you know under $500 equivalent to US, right? And you're and their teachers on everybody can do what they want to do, but if you put yourself in those types of circles and things like that, but you're dressing like or flaunting your cash or and that's what happens in these places when people talk about they were robbed and all this. How do people even know what you have? How do they know to rob you unless you're doing things that make you stand out, right? And I know we come from a place that says you should be you and nobody should be able to tell you what to do. That works in the confines of the United States. When we start going to other places, you gotta be mindful, because there are some places where people are literally starving, and you start looking at the fact that, well, it's only $4 for a plate of food. When a person can't afford a $4 plate of food, that should tell you something, right? And a lot of times and that's one of the reasons why I don't eat out every day either, because especially, I go to certain places, but I limit, what I do and things like that. And then I try to be around people in places that, if I'm going to splurge, I'm with other splurgers per se. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not in a local place or whatever, and you know, just overdoing it, right? But I even if you're like in places like Europe, they even tease. They're like, "Oh, you must be American." When I was in Africa, in Tanzania, I would tip because it's a customary thing in the States, because we don't make good wages as in the service industry. And and so you tip. And I've learned lessons being in different countries that can be an insult to some people. And somebody in Tanzania was like, "Oh, you must be American." Even UK people, they're like, "Of course, Americans," and they look at it negatively, like we're trying to boast. Not trying to boast. Where we come from, our servers, they don't make any money. They're making less than $3 an hour still. After 25 years. So it's just understanding the culture, which is another reason why I like to bridge those cultural gaps, because taking the opportunity to share with other countries that all Americans aren't rich. We have states that are full of homeless people. A lot of people, when when they think of the United States, they think everybody is rich, everybody rolling in dough, and we just walk around, we just do dance videos and kill each other. And I'm not just talking about like what they think about black people. They just like in general, like Americans in general, we're very pompous and we don't care to know anything. We ain't trying to learn another language. We just want to come throw our money around. And a lot of times why you almost have to win people over, because they have a bad taste. And when you walk in and maybe even subconsciously, playing into that ideal, it's harder for people to, you know, learn to respect who you are. Um, Shana says, I want to slow travel starting with Mexico and spend 4 months in different places throughout the year. Oh, that's awesome. Starting Mexico, then go to Belize. So right on the border of each other. You can literally just drive over if you want to. We drove from Tulum all the way down to Chetumal, which is on the border of Belize and Mexico. And at that time, we couldn't cross because of COVID. But yeah, you can cross over. I know people who cross over from Belize to go to Mexico to shop. It's cheaper than having things shipped, especially it's like smaller things, housewares, things like that. They just cross over because, in Mexico, they've got Home Depots and Best Buys and Walmarts, all of that. They have Walmarts in Costa Rica too, you guys. Y'all didn't know. And I was in Jaco, and there's Walmarts there, Sam's Clubs, everything. So yes, and when you get started, oh, you're gonna love it. You are going to love it. This is what I will say, Shauna, and anybody else that's listening. If you go to a place and you want to kind of start off in a city where other people have been, try to do like a short term, like a few days stay in a place. See if you like it before you extend. And then this is like you can travel however you want, of course. But if you're looking to how do I see other cities, do that home base thing and then start visiting those other cities, but find a place where you feel comfortable leaving all your things, and you don't have to worry about stuff, and you can kind of traipse around the way that you want. But if you get an opportunity within the 4 months that you're there to visit other cities, because you might also find too in some cases that you'll go places where everybody has been and it really is only decent as a tourist. That's like I would say with Maldives. What I hear about the Maldives is like if you're not a tourist there, you would never want to live there. That's what I hear. So it's not one of those places where like if you're in, I would say that almost about Zanzibar, but I know people who live in Zanzibar full time, been living there forever. I like Zanzibar. I guess I could live there. I was in an apartment. My second place that I stayed was an apartment, very close to the beach. We were like just a path away from the beach. So yeah, I could do Zanzibar. But the nice thing is being able to hop out, and just go other places. So, oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, I was ending this video like almost an hour ago, but I love these questions. I appreciate you guys chiming in and sharing your path, your journey as well. It's just nice. It's nice to meet other people in this circle, y'all. Shanna, I don't always like confining myself to the touristy areas. Yeah, if you're comfortable moving around, that's one of the best things. If you go any place that I've been and I've had a driver, I will share those with you. Like if you're in Quito, excuse me, I have a driver. And I have a friend who, I share the information with any and everybody, but then people don't always use them. And I always tell people, don't feel obligated to use someone that is referred to you if it doesn't fit your budget, if you don't feel the energy or whatever. Because one of the other things that happens too along with this, tourists are wealthy, and in their mind we are, because number one, we're touring a place. The simple fact that we can move around, a lot of people can't do that. So yeah, we are wealthy in multiple ways, right? But a lot of times people right now are trying to make up for the last 2 years. And so what may seem like a couple dollar increase to them or cost to them, um, you know, whatever, well, we may look at it and overall it just doesn't fit into the budget because, you know, that 20 extra dollars is, or, whatever. And in one case, it was like a $40 increase. And I was just like, oh, okay. You know, um, you are not obligated to utilize anybody. But what I do like to do is, at least one of the things that I will share before I leave is sometimes when you go places and you're utilizing a service or a referral or something like that, to be honest and tell them, hey, you know what, that's not in my budget. I can't actually afford that. And see, some people are like, I want to be able to afford whatever your wage is. And then sometimes it's that person may be willing to bend because at the very least they're getting more than they would if they were doing nothing, right? So what I normally suggest is have that conversation and say, okay, well, that's steeper than what I was expecting to pay. This is the area, but I understand if this is the my budget that I wanted to stay in. If you can do that, great. If not, I totally understand. And then ask them if they would refer someone else. A lot of times they'll have somebody else for you that you can utilize and you can check, or you just figure out how to move around on your own solo, which usually is cheaper. It's just depends on your comfort level of doing your own thing, right? uh, and most times everything I do is on my own. I very rarely use tour guides, very rarely, and it's only because um, I don't do a lot of group things as much anymore, but I'm also slow traveling, so I don't have to cram everything in. And sometimes I like, unless it's something like I know I can't get there and it's like 2 hours away. When I did the tours in Quito, I did private tours, so I paid more technically, or I paid like the same amount I would have paid with Viator, but I was by myself, right? So I was going to pay the same amount, and I was only going to be allowed to do these things, and I was going to be on somebody else's schedule. Whereas this, I got a full day, I got a person all to myself, a private car, all of that, you know. So ask those types of questions, when you're getting referral information from people. Hey, are they good if something doesn't fit my budget? Do you know if they're willing to negotiate, or, just reach out. I always tell people, before you go and physically meet somebody, send them a WhatsApp. Most of the people who are good tour guides, they're all on WhatsApp. And you can have these conversations with them before you even touch down in a place. So that way you know what you need to do. Um, Hopefully that's helpful and that makes sense. Anyway, y'all, I'm going to get off of here. I appreciate you guys jumping on. If you got questions about different videos and stuff, or information that I've shared in this, and you want a little bit more, please just reach out to me. Like I said, we can do one-on-ones, or I can do another video, because I love sharing. I love sharing information, but a lot of times, this is 2 hours. It was only supposed to be like one and a half, depending on the Q&A part. But a lot of people don't want to sift through a long video, and so some people would prefer to do one-on-one sessions, and I do those in like 40-minute increments. So they're small enough but private for each individual person who's looking for specific information. So I'm going to get out of here, you guys. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Check back for upcoming videos. I'm clearly going to do a part 2 to this, because there definitely needs to be a part 2. But I also had planned on doing a video touching on what I was sharing earlier, my 27, where I'm at month 28. So the last 28 months, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and and that maybe just will be part of this discussion because I'm kind of just sharing with you things to know, things to do, tips, regrets, mistakes that I've made, and hopefully I'll keep you guys from digging those same holes yourself. You're welcome, Shana. I will share more, and I can't wait to hear some of your stories when you get out here in this world. I saw you said your 50th birthday. When is that? Is that this year or is that next year? Or I'm just assuming. I don't even know your age, but um, a lot of times we're all in that same bucket. You're welcome, Colette. Thank you for jumping on and sharing your input as well. Someone may read your comment and want to inquire about the university. I find a lot of people always, May 12th. Okay, so very nice. Very nice. Next year you turn 50. Okay. All right. Celebration in order. I'll be waiting to hear about that. I don't know where I'll be next May. I definitely want to. I've got a couple things that might be up in the air that might keep me in the Americas or bring me back to the Americas, but we'll see. So I may be traipsing around here. I'm thinking maybe Guatemala. I'm possibly if I don't jump overseas, overseas seas, then I may hit up Guatemala. El Salvador is calling me a little bit, even though a lot of people don't talk about it. It's one of the reasons why I want to go because nobody really talking about it. But El Salvador, Guatemala. I've been to Honduras just for part of a cruise I was on, but you see the parts that are important to see. So I don't know, y'all. I might stay over here for a hot second longer, and then I got some friends in Mexico. Quite a few friends in Mexico now. But yeah, before I go, actually, let me mention my two friends that I did my party with, my 1K follower party. I'm gonna share with you guys like a huge regret I have about my social media, YouTube specifically, a mistake that I made, and I'm just gonna share it because I want to make sure y'all know if you're trying to build your social media, what to do. Not what to do because I'm definitely not. I don't know how to do, but what I should have been paying attention to. I slacked big time. But from Lack to Legacy, she does investor sessions, like she does live investor sessions on Fridays at 9:30 Eastern time. Every Friday, and she may be adding a day or two. She gives tips. If you go on her page, she is very concise. She gives lots of resources that you can use if you're a beginner trader. I'm trying to get back into it. I've done some trading where I just kind of jumped in, was doing some stuff, and so I've lost some money and stuff, all of that. But she walks through some of those things and shares, and I think you can also do some individual consulting with her on getting started. She can help you set up your accounts like TD Ameritrade and the different platforms that they use within those. And then so if you guys go and subscribe, like her page, and then my other friend Sonia Unapologetic, she is also a fellow traveler, and she actually just launched her different journals. There are Sonia Unapologetic journals, and you can find those. Go to her page, and if you subscribe, you'll actually see her post about it. But those are available on Amazon, and basically you order one of those journals, just different ones. You order one, you get it shipped to you from Amazon. So pretty easy. If you're planning on traveling, get you some. If you plan to come see me, let me get some, and I think somebody's coming to see me next month, so I'm gonna actually order some US things and have them brought to me. But check those two ladies out. Actually, let me put their tags in my comments. And there's other people that I follow as well, but I can't tag it from here. I'll tag it when I get to, let me tag. I don't think I can tag it from here. I'll tag them when I go back to the video on YouTube. Oh, awesome, Colette. You already. Are you following Sandra from uh, from lack to from lack to legacy. Yes, from lack to legacy. That is awesome. Thank you so. Yeah, trying to build these circles is um, harder than it looks, because when you're being intentful with who you want as a part of it, you don't just do anything with anybody. And so I'm happy to be a part of the clan because they're doing some awesome things, and they're basically, without even saying anything to me directly, inspiring me, like getting my website updated, things, a bunch of things, the journals, all these things. I'm literally just like, okay, these are the types of inspiration that I haven't really been focused on making sure maintaining along this journey. And those are the things that, let me tell you how far so I literally, I could do like just tons of videos on just mistakes that I didn't know were mistakes, until now you're kind of sitting and going, oh, started that, didn't finish it, started that, didn't finish it. And which direction you should go in and how you start figuring that out. And so these tips that I shared today literally can be applied to anything, not just travel. Chenna, that's the way I started following Ali too. Yeah. I was supposed to, and like from Steph. Oh yes, from Stephanie. So it's funny. I had been following Rashida for 2 years. I think I found Stephanie last year. I found Stephanie last year, but I have been following Rashida for over 2 years. It was, well, yeah, a little over 2 years. So it was 2020. And when I go back to all my emails that I've been, because I looked and I was like, oh, I've been getting these emails for years, right? But just wasn't tapping in, wasn't making a decision. So the information was great to have. I put it on the back burner when I get there, and I hadn't really decided that's why this information, these steps, they can save you from years of wasting time. But I'll also share my thoughts on that. I ended up realizing I wasn't wasting time. I was self-caring. I had to get to a point where I had sifted through the things that were weighing me down without even realizing they were weighing me down. So it's awesome. All right, y'all, I'm gonna get off here. Because I need to get some things done. And I have no food in my refrigerator by choice, y'all, so I can start losing some weight. Because when I go through some phases in life, sometimes if I got light stuff and I can just cook it up, I'll be eating all day. Plant-based and all, gaining weight, eating all day. Followed Rashida through Stephanie, taking Rashida's course, gave me the courage. Oh, that is awesome. Ooh, let's talk about these toxic jobs. I'll tell y'all one day why I quit. I've already shared that before, but I'll go back and share why I left officially. So, all right, you guys, y'all have a fantastic afternoon, because I know we're all within the same like 2 to 3 hour time zone. So most of us are in the afternoon hours. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. And like I said, if you guys have any questions or anything about stuff that I've shared, please let me know. And I love the family. This is awesome. So I'll chat with you guys later. Y'all know the drill. Toodles and noodles. Peace and hair grace. Bye, ladies.